Okay, so we were able to view all the products that existed in the array. So now we are going to try to alter the quantity on hand every time we do a purchase. Now let's see the menu again. What is it we wanted to do? We wanted to purchase a product. Okay. We haven't done that yet, so we're going to be doing it now. So we want if option is 3. We would like to purchase. Ultimately, I want to do it this way. So remember my functions, I want to give them a name that is a verb here. So maybe purchase product. Okay. What do you want to pass to it? So I want the prod. Again, that's the name of the array. It's the address of the first element within the array. And prod count. So now as you can see, you can almost predict my style here as to why I need to do this. So as you can see here, I want to keep these signatures very consistent. Okay. Makes programming easier. It makes troubleshooting easier, maintenance easier. There are a lot of advantages of writing code in this manner. Now, I will be modifying these collection of if statements with a switch case or a switch statement when I'm ready. But at this stage, I am experimenting. I'm making sure my functions work. I'm just concentrating on the functions. Now, I don't have this function defined at all. So I am going to go ahead and define it. So I'm just going to copy this name here and do it right above main here, since that is where it's a void. This does not return anything. This is where I define my functions. And it will take struct product, again pointer, and then pptr if you want to name it that. And this time again int max. That would be the max value. Basically, how far are you within the array in terms of products? Okay, just like the view product. Remember, I have an array of 100. But I could very easily only have 5 elements in there. So that's what the max is for. Okay. Now, I am going to ask the user to enter some sort of a product name to compare to what I already have to make a purchase and reduce my quantity on hand accordingly. That is the strategy behind this application. So I'm definitely going to need an array that I will compare, an array of characters that will act like a string where I enter a name of a product that I will compare to existing names. Okay, so maybe something like this. Char, prod name, and give it about 10, just like the other one. So that way we're comparing to exact same size arrays, right? What is it I'm going to be comparing to? I'm going to be comparing to this. Okay. So that means now I'm going to ask the user to go ahead and enter a product. So I'm going to do a printf, enter a product name. Okay. And scanf, %s. Remember here, you don't need to do an n%. So prod name, the name of the array is an actual address. So no need for an n%. Now the next, I'm going to ask how many items are you buying? So printf. So for that, I need an integer, int, quantity, to track how many I am buying, right? So right there, and I'm going to ask the user, right here, printf, enter the number of, you could do something like this, you're buying. Okay? Before we do this, comma, just go ahead and do prod name. Now, I don't know if I have that product or not, so I need an if statement to make sure I have that product. But your if statement has to evaluate against a whole series of structures stored in that array. So you need a loop and an if statement within that loop. That is the proper strategy and how to assess that. Again, so let's go ahead and enter scanf, the quantity that you want, %d, and %, and that would be the quantity. Okay. Let's go ahead and declare count, int count, because I need a for loop to step through my whole array. And maybe something like this. For count equals 0, count less than max, count plus plus. This allows me to step through the whole array. Okay? Within that, I start comparing the name that I chose right now while this function was running against any stored name right here. Then you're going to need a string compare. To do this, you're going to need an extra library, include string.h, that will have that function string compare for you. String compare basically compares two strings, and if they're equal, that function returns a 0. Okay. So we're going to go back here. Now you can verify that by going to the standard library for C and look at strcmp. So I am going to do this. If strcmp, that's the string compare function, and it takes two parameters, equals 0, if this is true. Okay, well, what are my two parameters? Let me put a comma here. One is the string that you just prod name, right? And the next one is, since your pointer is pointing to the first element right now, ptr, and dereference name, since those are the elements you are comparing to. If that is true, that's great. Then you're going to do an operation. Okay? If it's not true, else, go ahead and move the pointer. pptr plus plus. Okay? Otherwise, you're going to be stuck comparing to the first element at every time. This here, having this incrementation within this for loop, allows you to traverse the whole array. Now, there will be an instance where I will find an equality where these two will compare and be equal. That strcmp will produce a 0 because it returns an integer. And this is why I'm comparing the return of this function to the value 0, which in turn, that returns a Boolean value of true or false for the if statement to evaluate. And if it's true, then I'm going to ask the user, maybe this is where I need to ask the user. So I'm going to cut this. This is what happens when you write code on the fly. So I'm going to cut this and put it right here. Why not ask it now that we found the product? Prior to that, it doesn't make any sense to ask for a quantity. Let the program find it first. Once it finds it, okay, then we will subtract from the existing quantity on hand this particular quantity. Eventually, what I'm going to do is I could also add some logic to make sure we don't go into a negative value. But right now, let's assume everything, the user is fully aware how many were there and how much they're buying. Then we're not, let's not overcomplicate it yet. So, what are you going to do? Well, you need to update the quantity on hand. And who's got the quantity on hand? Well, it's in the array. And how do I have access to that array? I have access to that array through that pointer. So ptr quantity will be equal to its previous quantity minus this quantity that you just entered. ptr, so I am dereferencing again, quantity minus the quantity. Notice this is another variable that was declared within this function, semicolon. Okay, well, let's test it out. And then we'll view all our products and see after a transaction if we had an actual update. So what I'm going to do is compile and run. And let me see, I forgot a semicolon here. Good. All right. Compile and run again. And what do we have? And quantity, I bet you I misspelled it. Quantity. Okay. And compile and run. All right. Okay. Let's add a product. This is not going to happen unless you have a product. Let's have a product gizmo. And let's say we bought the price for that is $523 and we have 100 of those. Okay. Let's go ahead and purchase 50 gizmos. So I'm going to do 3. And I'm going to type gizmo. This is what I'm looking for. The fact that it asks me now how many I want to buy, the if statement produces a true. Okay, well, let's say I want to buy about 50. So I have the inventory there. Okay, now let's go ahead and view the products. And I should have 50 left. Fantastic. So the algorithm is working. Let's go ahead and add another product. And this time I'm going to add, let's say, toy. And let's say the toy's unit price is $12.90. And let's say I have 45 of them in the inventory. Now let's go ahead and view them. Okay, this is my existing inventory as it stands. And I'm going to go ahead and buy a toy. So I'm going to hit the space bar. I'm going to take 3, purchase a toy. And I'm just going to buy 2 of them. Right, so enter the number of toy you're buying, 2. Okay, now let's go ahead and do view. And sure enough, from 45, we went down to 43. So it's updating nicely. Now, let's say I want to purchase something that doesn't exist. And stuff, right? And notice I don't get an answer. Again, this program is not polished. I could have it where if it's false, it can print item not found. Okay? Or something of that nature. So if you didn't do anything, that's what would happen. Let's see what else. Let's view products again. Let's do another one. Let's do another purchase. Just to make sure we can actually still purchase gizmos, right? And I'm going to go ahead and do a 3. And I'm going to buy about 10 of them. So gizmo, buy 10 of them. And why is it doing this? 10. Let's see what's going on. So 2. So it went from 30. So it did it twice. Let me try it again. 1. I'm sorry. 2, view products. 3. Let's go ahead and do it again. Gizmo. And let's say I want to purchase 10. I should have a break statement once it's done. This is the problem. It did find it, fine. And then it looped again. That means whatever I did, I know what the problem is. I needed to increment right here. Either break or increment right here, PPTR ++. Let's try to see if that will resolve the problem. Okay, it's a good thing to test your code to make sure that everything works. Okay, so let's go ahead and compile and run. We're going to do the same thing again. We're going to have 2 products. So let's add a product. And let's do gizmo again. And let's do 45.67. Let's do 100. And let's put another product. 1. And let's do toy. And let's go ahead and put toy is $20.55. And let's say we have 20 of these. Now, let's go ahead and view these. It's 120. That's perfect. So now let's go ahead and do a purchase for Gizmo. And let's buy 10. Perfect. No more of it asking it twice. Because it has incremented, there is no more Gizmo. Let's go ahead and do a to view. And indeed, it reduced it by 10. Much better product now. Okay? So let's go ahead and do remove toy. So we want to buy toys. Toy. And let's say we want to buy 5 of those. And let's go ahead and do a 2. And sure enough, it reduced it. Let's go ahead and do a 3 again. And buy stuff, which doesn't exist. And we get nothing. Let's go ahead and do another Gizmo. And, that is not what I wanted to do. I entered 1. So now I have 2 Gizmos. So that's not going to work. As you can see, I'm not paying attention. That's fine. Let's redo the program, Control-C. And rerun it just to make sure everything is running. This happens a lot. So again, the program is not refined, so bear with me. 1, add a program, add a product. So we're going to do Gizmo again. And $100. And I have 100 of them. Okay. Let's go ahead and add another product. Toy. And the toys are $12.50. And let's say I have 10 of them. Okay, so let's go ahead and view again. There you have it. Okay. It'd be nice anytime I add a product, if it already exists, that just remember the previous program, the previous run. I could have easily have had 2 Gizmos with 2 different prices, 2 different quantities. It just would have added a lot of headache. Could I use the string compare to ensure that I am not adding an item that already exists? The answer is yes. You could do a whole bunch of things with that. So first, let's go ahead and do a transaction. Gizmo. And let's say I'm buying 3 of those. Let's go ahead and do a view. Okay, it's working. Now, at its core, it's working. But there are a lot of quirks with this program. Okay? So what kind of quirks? Well, there's nothing preventing me, whenever I add a product, that product is unique. So can we do something about it with that function string compare?